Adoption is for all people touched by adoption in any way. We're going to dive into all aspects of the process with the hope of uniting and supporting our adoption community.
All right, welcome to our next episode. We're so excited to have you guys back. Today we're going to be talking about adoption myths. These are things that people are constantly telling us, and all of our friends of adoption are true, and they're just not. So we're going to be busting 5 adoption myths today. So the first one that we're going to talk about is about birth parents. A lot of people say that birth parents don't try to stay involved with their child after an adoption placement. Luckily, we have Caitlin, who is a birth mom. Tell us a little bit about that, Caitlin.
Yeah, so that's absolutely not true. The great thing is that the majority of adoptions nowadays are actually open and semi-open. And that's not just because the birth mothers want that, it's also because the adoptive parents want that. So everyone wants a relationship with everyone. So we found in the past that when we did all those closed adoptions, there was so much trauma behind that. There was no closure, there wasn't that communication, and so it was difficult. And with everything being open and semi-open, it makes the biggest difference. And so I know personally that I wanted to see him grow up. I wanted to see my son, and I wanted to see if he was okay. I personally decided not to do yearly visits and things like that just because I thought it was going to be too difficult. I'd love to meet him in the future, and his family knows that, but there are lots of women who do that open adoption because they want that visit. I'm talking to a girl just right now who said, I want to know him, I want my family to know him, and I want him to know that I love him or her, and just so they know that it wasn't a selfish choice, but rather I was trying to put them first and everything I could do for them. So
definitely. And even those birth mothers who choose to have a closed adoption, whether that's for privacy or safety or whatever it is, every birth mom has the right to choose what's best for her, for her child, and to find support in that decision. And to go along with that, adoption does not equal abandonment. It's not the easy way out. It's not throwing away a consequence to someone's actions. There's so many different circumstances out there, and you just can't generalize it like that.
Exactly. There's not a right decision. There's not for every person. It's like, okay, everyone should do an open adoption. No. Everyone should do a closed adoption. No. There's not a right or wrong when it comes to any situation. It's completely personal. And that's, I think, one of the most beautiful things about adoption is that it is customizable in a way, which makes it so perfect for that little triad that you're part of.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right, so let's go on to the next one. This one is people only adopt because they can't have their own kids.
So not true. So not true. I mean, it's true for my parents, but it is not true for everyone. We have an amazing storyteller on our team over at Adoption.com who her mom is a single mom, and she chose not to get married, but she always wanted to raise a family and have kids. And so she adopted both of her daughters, and they're amazing. But she was the one who reminded me of this myth, is that, not everyone adopts just because they can't have kids or infertility reasons. Some people just want a bigger family, and so they choose to adopt. Some people adopt through foster care because they make a great connection and the option becomes available. Some people adopt because of religious reasons. Some people adopt because of a kinship situation where a relative needs a home. You just never know what is out there. And while infertility tends to be a really common reason, it's not the only reason. And so we should never assume or project our beliefs about someone's adoption just because it's common.
Exactly. Yeah. I know several people who have wanted to choose adoption because they were like, we had a surprise baby and all of our other kids are grown up, and we want a child to be raised with another brother and sister, so we're going to adopt. Obviously, they can have children, but they just want someone for their kids to grow up with, and and they want that child to have someone to grow up with. So yeah, every situation is just different, and that's why I can't believe it must be so difficult to be an adoptive parent and have those stereotypes, like, oh, you're adopting, can you not have kids? I'm so sorry you can't. No, we can have kids, like all those conversations they must have because people assume.
Yeah.
These myths.
Exactly.
All right, so our third one is, and Courtney, you're going to be great at answering this one. Adoptees are too damaged from trauma to have a happy life.
Oh, so not true. So not true. I cannot tell you how many times people have given me that look when they find out that I'm adopted, and I wear it proudly. It's one of my main personality traits, and it's probably so annoying, but it's my job. Although there's always trauma in adoption on every side of the triad, that doesn't mean you can assume anything about that adoptee, that birth mom, that birth dad, that adoptive parent. How they deal with that trauma is so individual, and how they choose to live their life is very personal. And just because they go through a hard thing, it doesn't mean that they're damaged. It doesn't mean they're destined to be sad or socially awkward or weird. It just means they had a different experience than you, and that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. And something I think we need to remember too is that every side of the triad experiences that trauma, and you have the adoptive parents who find out maybe they can't have kids, or you have the birth mother who goes through the adoption process. You have the adoptee who didn't get that closure. And so, just because everyone experiences trauma, though, doesn't mean it's a bad experience. And that's, part of adoption. Just because I place a child for adoption, granted, I have made it my life with my job, but there's so much more to me. There's so much more to the parents. There's so much more to that adoptee. It's not you're Courtney, the adoptee. You're Courtney, and part of you is that you're an adoptee, And so just because there is that trauma there or that experience doesn't mean your whole life is going to be bad.
Yeah. I love the analogy of the flat tire on the side of the road. If you get a flat tire, do you sit there wondering, where did that nail come from and what caused me to have this flat tire, and just mull there for hours and hours? No, you call a tow truck, you change the tire, you figure out how to move forward so that you can keep moving and keep going. And if you let that tire and figuring out what caused it and putting blame on it be your entire life, then you're going to be sitting on the highway for years. So change the tire, do what you need to heal. If that takes years and years, okay, do it. But don't assume that someone is broken just because they went through a hard thing.
This episode on My Adoption is sponsored by the Gladney Center for Adoption. Gladney provides adoption and advocacy services for domestic infant adoption, international adoption, counseling, maternity services, and adoption support. A caseworker can help you learn more about your options, find financial support throughout your pregnancy, and make an adoption plan that works for you. To get started, visit Adoption.org or call 1-800-236-7898.
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't to diminish anyone's trauma either. I firsthand know, especially with my mom as well, that there are adoptions that are traumatizing that can really hurt you.
Absolutely.
No matter what side of the triad you're on. And so this isn't to this myth isn't to diminish anyone's pain or trauma that they went through. Yeah. It's just, this myth is saying they're too damaged from trauma to have a happy life.
It does not define you at all.
Not define you. Yeah.
All right. Our next one is that adoption is not safe. This is a huge one, and it's so sad to me because there's been so many measures taken to make sure that adoption is done ethically and legally, and there's so many great options out there. The Gladney Center for Adoption is a great adoption agency that has been working for years and years and years with birth mothers, adoptees, adoptive families to make sure that everything is done ethically and safely. And it's your responsibility to understand what your laws are in your state and to make sure that your agency is working the best for you.
Absolutely. And one thing that Gladney does that I love is even if they're working with a girl, they tell them, do your research. If you are not 100% about us, like confident with our agency, that's okay. Like they're not offended if a girl chooses someone else, but they express that they should do their research because they want them to feel safe and secure in their decision, whether it's with them or somewhere else. But I've really noticed that with Gladney and talking to all of our caseworkers and our wonderful admissions team that, you know, they really tell these girls that it's okay to do research. In fact, we want you to do it. Yeah. Because it is your responsibility to do that research, and we can give you the information you need, but it's ultimately your decision.
Well, I think it's so important in the process of finding closure, whether you find that early on in the process or years down the road, to feel peace in knowing I made the right decision, or I made this decision that was best for me in the moment and for my child. And I don't have to worry whether or not they're safe because those measures were taken. And one of those measures is a home study.
Oh, true. Oh, I love home studies. I get this question all the time because I have women coming to me and they're like, how do I know my child's going to be safe? How do I know that this is a good home? And I'm like, let me tell you what a home study is. When doing a home study, I mean, they go into their health, their medical, their criminal backgrounds, family background, home background. So these mothers will know that their child will be taken care of. But it's also nice to know that your home is a safe place for a child too. Mm-hmm. You know? And so that research and having that home study is so important. As an adopted parent, it really helps a birth mother know that your home is safe. You know, mm-hmm. and as a birth mother, it really just develops that relationship with that family to know, like, hey, I know you guys are a great family.
Yeah.
Yeah, love home studies. Love that research done.
Yeah, and even with home studies, like, we can never tell the future. We don't know what is going to happen in, 5-10 years down the road. There may be divorce. There may be other traumas that happen. You just don't know. And so while home studies can't absolutely 100% ensure that a child is going to be safe and happy their whole life, nothing can. And so the best we can do is cover our bases, make sure that everyone has the best chance to have a positive and uplifting experience, and you go forward. And while there's a lot of things that you can't predict with adoption, you can have the security of feeling like you made a safe decision.
Exactly. Yeah. Another great resource that we have that I absolutely love that goes with that is Adoption.org. And how we literally redid Adoption.org so those women know the step-by-step process of adoption. And I think that's so important because it's nice because even if they don't want to contact someone to talk to them about it because they're just thinking about it, they literally have the entire guide right there in front of them. And that really allows them to make that safe and informed decision all with, right with the screen right in front of them.
Yeah, and to do it in their own time because not everyone is ready to talk to someone, and that's okay. Yeah. Like we said before, do your own research, take it day by day, do what is best for you so that you can have peace and closure throughout the process.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, this is our last one.
Here we go. So this is my favorite one. All birth mothers are teenagers. Surprise!
Not true.
Okay, granted, I was one, but that doesn't mean that all of them are. Actually, the majority of women that we work with are between the ages of 22 to 30. And a lot of them are already mothers who are single mothers of 3 kids and they don't have any support. There's some where they're in an abusive relationship and they have been for years, and so it's the majority of birth mothers we speak to and we work with are not teenagers. They're, there's this huge stereotype that
I think teen pregnancy has been so stigmatized and it's been talked up so much between TV shows and social media and everything. People don't consider that adoption is an option for people in their 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yes.
It's not always because someone is too young to raise a baby. Sometimes they don't want to. That's okay. Sometimes they have a family that they're already struggling to support, or that they don't think that they could fully support if they have another child. There's so many different reasons, and all of those reasons are valid. All of them, we're going to accept. It's not our job to accept them or reject them, really. It's our job to support you with whatever decision you choose.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's just, like we said before, every situation is so different and so personal. I have not come across one girl that I've talked to, and I've talked to hundreds of them, where their situation is like, oh yeah, you remind me of her, or her. Oh yeah, you fit in this category of three. It's not that way at all. It's just, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're going through this, because it is so personal and hard for every single person and every birth mother. And it doesn't matter what age you are, you know, but I just wish people would get rid of this stigma that oh, you placed a child for adoption, you must have been 16 when it happened. It's like, no.
Joke's on you.
I was 25.
Yeah.
And that can be hurtful too. That's another thing that we have to remember about these myths, is that it's a stereotype in a way too. And by not doing your research about adoption, you may offend someone because you don't have the right information.
And this is the case for any group of people or community, and we're all part of many of them, whether you're a part of a certain religion, whether you're a certain gender, whether you're anything. Generalizations are damaging, and they can be really hurtful. And so it's so important that whenever we start to fall into these beliefs about certain communities, or start making claims about what everyone or what no one is saying, we really need to consider those outliers, because there's more than you think. And if we approach every community and every situation with a little more empathy and a desire to learn, not just about the community, but about the person and about their individual story and circumstance, then we're going to be able to love and support them as they need it, or if they want it, or whatever it is. That being said, we would love it if all of you would share your adoption stories with us. So make sure to email us, comment, do all the things, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you so that we can share your experience as well.
Absolutely. It's so important, because honestly, the more we talk about it, the better it is. The more info you get, the more feelings you understand, the more empathy you can feel, like you said. And so, yes, we definitely want to hear all of your stories, as many as we can. We want to see a flood in our email box. So that would be awesome. So, well, that is it. We busted all of our myths today, and it was really great. I had a good time. It's nice to talk about these things too, because it's not talked about enough. So really excited for our podcast and our next episode. So make sure to join us next week. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to My Adoption. To have your adoption experience featured, please email info@myadoption.com. If you're pregnant and considering adoption, or looking for adoption support, call or text 1-800-236-7898.